In the 80s, bin Laden and the CIA came together in Afghanistan.
They gave me the Stinger missiles and $1 billion.
Believing they'd brought down the Soviet Union, each imagined they could transform the world. 10 years later, both faced failure. So the new right found another fantasy enemy.
It's terrorism, political terrorism.
While the extreme Islamists resorted to violence and terror. Out of all this came today's climate of deception and fear. The Power of Nightmares continues tomorrow at 9 on BBC Two.
Here on BBC One now, a summary of the news with Dermot Murnaghan.
Good afternoon. The broadcaster John Peel has died at the age of 65. The Radio 1 DJ and Radio 4 presenter had a heart attack in a hotel while on a working holiday in Peru with his wife. He always championed new talent and discovered many well-known bands after joining Radio 1 when it was launched in 1967. Downing Street says Tony Blair would still prefer to reach a compromise on outlawing hunting with hounds in England and Wales. The House of Lords will vote tonight on proposals to allow hunting to continue under licence. The Israeli parliament is preparing to vote on Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's plan to withdraw all Jewish settlers from the Gaza Strip. Thousands of settlers are demonstrating outside the parliament building. Sir Mark Thatcher has appeared in a South African court on charges of funding an attempted coup in Equatorial Guinea. His lawyers challenged the demand that he answer questions set by prosecutors from the West African state.
I won't be able to smoke this weekend. I've got my little nieces coming to stay and they get on at me about it.
Oh, Uncle Barry, you're making my asthma worse.
Just drains all the fun out of it.
The Smoking Room, addictive new comedy, starts on BBC Two, next Tuesday at 10.
This is BBC One in the East. Now the news with Sian Williams, Dermot Murnaghan and Stuart White.
At 6 o'clock, one of Britain's most celebrated broadcasters, John Peel, has died. The DJ, who spent 4 decades in radio, suffered a heart attack while on holiday.
Also tonight, Israeli settlers' anger as Parliament votes on moving them out of the Gaza Strip.
The link between smoking and asthma, researchers say they found the strongest evidence yet.
Sir Mark Thatcher in court in South Africa. He denies financing an alleged coup plot.
And the men back home from fighting for America. In the second of our special reports, Raggy Omar goes to Iowa to see how the war on terror will affect the race for the White House.
And here in the East tonight, more on the death of John Peel. Look East pays tribute to a unique broadcaster and a family man who fell in love with Suffolk and East Anglia. That's a Look East special in half an hour.
Good evening, welcome to the 6 o'clock news.
First tonight, tributes have been paid to one of the music industry's most influential figures. John Peel, whose radio career spanned nearly 40 years, died suddenly of a heart attack while on holiday in Peru. He was 65. John Peel was BBC Radio 1's longest-serving DJ and was passionate about promoting new music. Here's Nick Hyam.
Still sounds pretty good to me, I must say. Those are the adverts from years and years ago.
His style was laid back, laconic, lugubrious, but underneath he was an enthusiast. He never lost his passion for music that was new, original, surprising. The Undertones' Teenage Kicks was his favourite record. The band were among scores, even hundreds, whose careers took off once John Peel championed their music on his late-night Radio 1 show. CDs and demo tapes poured in. He loved anything edgy and challenging, from punk to hip-hop.
We were all still at school and stuff, and we got a John Peel session, because I went and gave him the cassette when he was doing a roadshow one day. And so, you know, we were just these stupid kids from Sheffield. But we got, you know, without that, we probably would never have got any further, and I'm sure that has happened a lot of times.
Listen for me, John Ravencroft, when I have the honour of joining Bobby Davis and Kay nightly on KOMA.
The posh public schoolboy from the Wirral started in radio in America in the early 60s. The Liverpool accent and a new name came when he switched to the pirate Radio London in the North Sea. In 1967, he was one of the DJs who launched Radio 1. For years, he's been the only survivor of that original lineup.
It's considerably tidier studio than you had last week.
He didn't think much of the rest of the station's output.
You don't learn anything at all from listening to it for an entire week. And the music, of course, is basically, I think, pretty dismal.
But in due course, he mellowed. He even became an institution.
He's been a voice of continuity for people of my age. We've grown up with him, really, and he's sort of part of the family. I feel like we've lost one of the family.
He worked from home with a studio at his Suffolk farmhouse, a family man with a wife, 4 children and several pets, and a perfect choice to present Radio 4's Home Truths about modern family life.
He seemed to have had quite a difficult childhood, quite lonely in some respects, a complicated set of relationships, particularly with his mum, and that contrasted vividly with the warmth and the humour you felt he had in his own family life, particularly the relationship with Sheila, who he used to call the pig. And because he talked so openly and amusingly about all of this, it encouraged listeners to write in with the most extraordinary range of stories about their own lives.
Few radio presenters triumph in such different types of programme, but John Peel did. It won him many awards, and all for doing something he loved.
I know I'm fabulously lucky. I mean, I do know that. Everything that I wanted when I was a kid. A job on the radio playing records that I like. And I'm getting lots and lots of free records. It's difficult to think what could be added to this to improve it.
Well, joining us now from another of our studios is a close friend and colleague of John Peel, fellow broadcaster Andy Kershaw. Andy, thanks for joining us. We've been hearing from a lot of people just how influential John Peel was. What do you think his biggest contribution to the music industry was?
I would say he was the single most important figure in the history of British rock music, and you know, I put him ahead, if you like, of Paul McCartney and John Lennon on that, because of his enthusiasm, his championing of the outsider, the underdog, the unpopular, until he made it popular enough to be in the mainstream. And he did it for so long in so many different styles of music as well, and he never lost that. He was still, as our old producer that we used to share, John Walters, once said of him, you know, the day that Peel hits puberty, we're all in trouble. And he was still like that at the age of 65.
Yeah,
it's an enormous loss. It's not just because we've lost a great bloke and a good friend, and you know, everybody felt they were John Peel's friend, but culturally it's a huge loss. If you're 16 years old in a band tonight, you know, in some far-flung part of Britain, you've lost a big chance, because your great cheerleader has gone, if you can put it that way.
And you, of course, have lost a close friend as well. Do you have one lasting memory?
Oh, I can't narrow it down to one. You know, there are so many. When I arrived at Radio 1 in the summer of 1985 as supposedly the hip young gunslinger, and I think John was a bit worried that they brought me in to replace him, because my goodness me, he got to 45 by then. And, you know, he could easily have rejected me. We shared this 8-foot by 8-foot office. And he took me in, and he just encouraged me, and he became like a sort of rather exotic uncle. But there's loads of other things. You know, we used to just, aside from music, we used to go away together to the Isle of Man TT races. Yeah, and I think it would be something like the pair of us standing in the field in driving rain, peering over a dry stone wall, watching midget Irishmen fling themselves around the island for our entertainment. And we were deliriously happy when we were doing that kind of stuff.
Andy Kershaw, thanks very much.
The Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, is due to vote shortly on Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's controversial plans for a unilateral withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. Now, it's thought Sharon will win the vote despite strident opposition from his own party, Likud. About 8,000 settlers, plus the troops that protect them, will be removed from 21 settlements in the Gaza Strip, and 4 settlements in the West Bank will also be evacuated. But over 200,000 settlers will remain in place there. Mr. Sharon says his plan is the best chance to end the violence. But as Ola Gearin now reports, the settlers in Gaza will fight all the way.
The early morning rush on decision day. Sammy Hilberg and his wife Bryna know today's vote may determine their future and threaten their home in the Gaza settlement of Netzer Hazani.
Yohanan was in the army 4 years before he was killed.
Sammy tells me their son Yohanan lies buried nearby and they want him to rest here forever. So they and their neighbours head for Jerusalem, a pilgrimage to the centre of power. a journey they never thought they'd make to confront the Prime Minister who urged them to live on occupied Palestinian land.
I feel betrayed. We have been here 25 years. Ariel Sharon is one of the people that encouraged people to come and move here.
We bring up our children. We go to work every day. We celebrate holidays. We cry when things are sad. We laugh when things are happy. We're not monsters. All we want to do is just live in our homes.
In Jerusalem, they joined thousands of others converging on the Israeli parliament, a show of strength by a group powerful enough to have split Sharon's party. Little chance they'll go quietly, even if, as expected, they lose today's vote. The aim of all this is to say that protests will continue. The final vote on the disengagement plan isn't expected until next spring, and a lot could happen between now and then, including perhaps early elections. But the settlers have a problem. The majority of ordinary Israelis back the pull-out plan. That's what Ariel Sharon is relying on. He had his say on the plan yesterday, though he was constantly heckled. He looks set to win with the help of the opposition, but his coalition is under threat, and some say perhaps even his life. Among Palestinians in Gaza today, little sign of interest in the vote that's consuming Israel. They may get rid of the settlers, but they'll still be ringed by Israeli troops. Sharon will never give us peace, Abir told us. If there's any excuse, the army will come back in. Sammy and Bryna head for home before the vote. Sharon may get his plan through, but they doubt that he'll be able to carry it out.
And we can speak to Orla in Jerusalem. And Orla, what could this mean for the peace process?
Well, Ariel Sharon can and will say that this is a step on the road to peace, but others don't see it that way. Now, he has conducted a unilateral move. He is not offering peace talks. He's not offering the Palestinians a state of their own. He will be maintaining his troops around the edge of Gaza. They will control the border, the airspace and the sea. And as Palestinians are saying, they may be able to return at any point. Now, while he's doing all of this, making a concession in Gaza, he's also trying to consolidate his hold on large swathes of Palestinian territory inside the West Bank. And Palestinians are afraid that really what Sharon is doing is making a tactical manoeuvre, making a rather minor concession in Gaza, so that he'll be able to avoid making any more serious concessions down the road, anything that might lead to them realising their dream of a state.
Orla Gearin, thank you.
The House of Lords has voted for hunting with hounds to be licensed. In the last few minutes, peers backed the compromise in the hope of avoiding an outright ban in England and Wales. A clash with MPs is now likely, though, since a majority in the Commons think that a system of registered hunts does not go far enough. They want to force through a total ban.
Now, if you smoke, you're a third more likely to develop asthma later in life than people who don't. Researchers in Finland say they've uncovered the strongest evidence yet linking smoking with asthma. Here's our health correspondent, Jill Higgins.
Mouthpiece then, and blow very hard, blow.
Asthma is a chronic, often painful disease. Many studies show smoking makes it worse, but now there's evidence cigarettes can actually cause asthma in adults.
This is now a different sort of study showing that smoking may be a factor in the causation of the disease in the first place. But all of these reasons are reasons why we need to continue to have a much more aggressive approach to stopping this terrible addictive habit.
So how did this study work? Well, in an asthma clinic like this one, the researchers in Finland identified every new case of adult asthma over a period of about 2 years. They compared these with people who were free of asthma, and they found certain characteristics were strongly linked to asthma developing later in life. Smoking increased the risk in both sexes, by over 30% in men and nearly 150% in women. It's no surprise to Margaret Fountain. She gave up smoking years ago, but developed asthma in her 40s, and she thinks her old habits to blame.
Particularly because I'm very, very sensitive to cigarette smoke, and I find it very difficult to go somewhere like a pub. I know instantly when I walk through the door that I'm not going to be able to stay.
Cities like Liverpool want pubs to become smoke-free because smoking's linked to cancer and heart disease, and now asthma as well. It's new evidence the government needs to consider as it decides national policy on a smoking ban in the next few weeks. Jill Higgins, BBC News.
BP has made record profits thanks to the rising price of oil. It made just over £2 billion between July and September, and that's around £16,000 a minute. BP's results come as energy experts warn that global demand for oil is set to soar. Here's Hugh Pym.
Petrol prices have been creeping up and so have BP's profits. The company's boss said the higher cost of crude oil was a major factor, but he didn't think motorists would have to suffer too much more on the pump price.
Crude oil prices are unlikely to go too much higher, so you should not expect petrol prices to go up much higher. The actual price every day will depend on the particularities of supply and demand as we move quarter by quarter, and people's perception of how secure the supply is.
BP's been getting more money for the oil it pumps. That's because people are buying it in ever larger quantities. The developing world, led by China, is sucking in increasing volumes of oil to fuel its booming economy. And a report by the world's leading experts out today says yet more will be needed to satisfy the appetites of countries like this. The International Energy Agency predicts that total global demand for energy will soar nearly 60% by the year 2030. The requirement for gas will be up by 100%, and the need for oil will rise 49% by 2030. These are the people who'll be trying to meet that thirst for oil, the industry's elite. A conference in London attracted many leading players, including senior figures in the oil producers group OPEC. The main talking point: would prices stay at record levels above $50 a barrel?
Some people think if the situation continues as it is now, by the end of the year, it might get as far as 60. I believe myself that prices will remain in the region of 50 for the next half year or so.
And if that happens, it'll mean more bumper profits for BP and no chance of cheaper tankfuls for motorists on the forecourts. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Sir Mark Thatcher has appeared in court in South Africa in connection with an alleged plot to overthrow the government of Equatorial Guinea. Sir Mark, the son of the former Prime Minister Lady Thatcher, is accused of financing the plot. He denies the charges. Here's Barnaby Phillips.
The former Prime Minister's son in playful spirits on his way to court. Sir Mark Thatcher is fighting to clear his name from allegations that he plotted an African coup. The government of Equatorial Guinea wants to question Sir Mark, believing that he helped to finance the coup plot. But today, Sir Mark's lawyers argued that South Africa's Justice Ministry shouldn't be helping the government of Equatorial Guinea to pursue its trial.
We contend that that is unconstitutional.
Equatorial Guinea is an oil-rich dictatorship. 6 months ago, President Obiang Nguema said he'd uncovered a plot to overthrow him and install an exiled opposition leader. And that's when a group of alleged mercenaries were arrested in Zimbabwe, apparently on their way to Equatorial Guinea. They included Simon Mann, a former British soldier and a friend of Sir Mark Thatcher's. And then the sensational twist in an extraordinary story. The South African police arrested Sir Mark at his Cape Town mansion. He was charged with funding mercenary activity. He insists he's innocent.
The only thing that I can say
Today,
is,
Sir Mark wasn't saying much when he left court.
It would be inappropriate to make any comment at this stage. And even were I to do so, it would be preempting the decision of the bench, which everybody will understand why I can't do at all. So
This is only an early skirmish in a long legal battle, and in the months ahead, Sir Mark will struggle to keep out of the public eye. Barnaby Phillips, BBC News, South Africa.
The time is 6:17.
A reminder now of tonight's top stories. The celebrated broadcaster John Peel has died of a heart attack at the age of 65. He'd worked in radio for nearly 40 years. The Israeli parliament is about to vote on controversial plans for a unilateral withdrawal from the Gaza Strip.
And later in the programme, the arguments about Arsenal's clash with Manchester United just won't go away. James Munro's at Highbury.
Where the Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger continues to criticise Sunday's referee but denies that tunnel bust-up they're calling Suitgate.
Here in the east, tributes to John Peel in the Suffolk village where he lived for more than 30 years. There's a sense of shock tonight as they remember a man always ready to help, a man with no airs or graces. That story is in 15 minutes.
Now, next Tuesday, America will vote for the next US president. The campaigns are focused on jobs, the economy and the war on terror. All this week, the 6 o'clock news is on the election trail with Raggy Omar as he asks Americans who they're voting for and why. His journey crosses the country from Wisconsin in the north to Louisiana in the south. And tonight, he's in Iowa, which has sent more soldiers from its National Guard to serve abroad than any other state. And many of them are voting for the first time.
Justin Hoosman is back on leave from Afghanistan, where he's serving with the National Guard. And the first thing he did was to buy a Harley-Davidson motorbike. He's 19 and is voting for the first time. Home is Dubuque in Iowa. For Justin, his experiences in Afghanistan have determined who he is going to vote for, President Bush.
The stuff I see over there, I see that it's a pretty poor country, so I see a lot of kids that I feel bad for, and I like to help out. And it's nice being over there, seeing what we're doing, different kind of ways that we're helping them out over there, schools, and trying to help out the younger kids so they can get out of the poverty and hopefully get better lives when they grow up.
It's Justin's last night with his family before returning to Afghanistan.
Just like Dubuque again, I come back home and my brother's still a little brat and still love my mom to death.
After the group photos, a picture of Justin alone with his mother.
Although Justin is very resolute and direct about America's role in Afghanistan, the choice for his mother is a much more difficult one. She has to weigh up who will bring her son back safely from the war in Afghanistan, whether it's going to be President Bush or Senator Kerry.
I think Kerry is behind the soldiers, but I think Bush, I think he knows what he's doing. And
when you look at both of them and you look at the campaigns and you look at them in the debates, which one of them do you entrust your son's security and safety to? Who makes you feel more secure about Justin and about you?
Bush now.
Really?
Yeah, right.
I think him and John Edwards have a great plan for creating jobs.
Melissa Zamora is a year older than Justin. She too will be voting for the first time. But she's chosen to fight a very different battle, giving up her college studies in Dubuque to campaign for John Kerry. She says her family fears Bush will bring back compulsory military service.
My parents are actually registered Republicans, have never voted for a Democrat. My brother, he's 17, and they understand that if George Bush remains in office, there's a possibility of a draft.
I have followed reporting the war on terror from Afghanistan to Iraq, and this is my first time reporting from the States since then. And I didn't think that, although it's a very big issue, a foreign policy issue would be so high in terms of the conversations of which I've had, but it is.
It is.
And that's not an unrealistic reflection.
No, it's not at all.
Right.
When I was abroad, so many people were unhappy, not with just George Bush, but now with Americans in general.
Melissa says some voters tell her that they are particularly worried about the handling of the war in Iraq.
They understand that we can't just leave right away. A lot of people that I'm speaking with, they want help from other countries, and right now we can't get that with George Bush.
They want to internationalize the country.
Yes, they want multilateral forces, and we can't get that right now with George Bush. So that's why a lot of people are supporting John Kerry and John Edwards.
Far from being a distant issue, the war on terror is affecting the lives and choices of first-time voters in rural Iowa. This region in the heart of the Corn Belt of the United States is home to the Field of Dreams, where the film was set. Now a tourist destination, local baseball players reenact the scene in the movie where the ghosts of the Chicago White Sox players come to practice.
I think Bush is a good man.
I do too.
I do. I think he's a good man.
For domestic issues, I think Kerry would be good, but in the situation we're in, when we're fighting, quotation marks, a war, I think you want the experience.
They're all Bush supporters, yet even they are worried about events in Iraq.
we have some sort of a strategy here. You know, I mean, we have some sort of, we just didn't go in there and it's like, okay, we're going to take Iraq over, you know, and everybody knew going in there. I mean, everybody thought that, you know, you knew it was going to be a volatile situation. I mean, it just had to be. And, you know, now what?
This is the first presidential election since the national trauma of September the 11th, and it's why the war on terror will be the defining issue for many when they vote. Raggy Omar, BBC News, Iowa.
Now, is the future of the new European Commission under threat? Its president says he won't reshuffle his team, but MEPs are threatening to veto the entire commission. They're angry at comments about gays and women made by the Italian nominee for Justice and Home Affairs. Stephen Sacca reports.
A political storm has broken over Strasbourg. At the centre of it, Rocco Buttiglione, the next EU Justice Commissioner. Or maybe not. Mr. Buttiglione, a conservative and a Catholic, believes homosexuality is a sin. He worries about single mothers. His critics, mostly leftists, say he isn't fit for the justice job. Today, the incoming EU Commission boss, José Manuel Barroso, stressed his commitment to equality and human rights, but he refused to reshuffle Mr. Buttiglione.
We are looking for a commission who is able to work.
So passions flared, Greens bellowed their disgust, Socialists vowed to vote against the new commission. And outside the chamber, plenty of quiet arm twisting. Labour MEPs have been told Tony Blair doesn't want the commission voted down.
All the governments want us to vote yes.
But you're not prepared to listen to Mr. Blair?
We are looking at the situations we see in the European Parliament.
But you're going to vote no?
We don't know yet, but we will see. At the moment, it looks like it.
So the fate of Mr. Barroso's new commission is in the balance, and he is understandably edgy.
I think I'm right. I really believe I'm right. But I've considered all the possibilities, and I think the decision we take is the best one for Europe.
This evening, some MEPs say they'll give the new commission the benefit of the doubt, but it may not be enough. Tomorrow, MEPs must reject or ratify the whole of the incoming commission. It looks as though the vote will be very, very close, and if it ends in rejection, that will be an historic first for the European Union, and it could lead to weeks, if not months, of political chaos. Stephen Sacca, BBC News, Strasbourg.
Sport now, and the Manchester United forward Ruud van Nistelrooy has pleaded guilty to a Football Association charge of serious foul play. He's been banned for 3 matches for his tackle on Arsenal's Ashley Cole during United's win on Sunday. But Arsenal's manager Arsene Wenger is still angry at the match's referee.
In this occasion, I feel that Man United did not play the game with the spirit we tried to play. And that the referee didn't, without interfering in any decision he made, I don't feel that he had enough authority on the game to make football we love respected.
Arsene Wenger. Let's talk now to James Monroe, who's outside Arsenal's Highbury ground. And the FA are already investigating Arsene Wenger's comments about the referee, but he sounds pretty unrepentant there.
That's right, Sian. Arsene Wenger made some remarks about the referee, Mike Riley, immediately after the match. And the Football Association want to know exactly what he said and whether it was reported accurately, because they want to know whether they should charge Arsene Wenger on the basis of those remarks. And you look at how he was talking today, and it seems like his time certainly hasn't tempered what he had to say. He also used the press conference to talk a little bit about that tunnel bust-up. You may have seen reports of how Sir Alex Ferguson had allegedly had soup and pizza thrown all over him. Well, Arsene Wenger said today that he could categorically deny there was any sort of fracas in the tunnel. He also said that he at no stage had ever accused Ruud van Nistelrooy of cheating, which is something the Football Association also wanted to talk to Arsene Wenger about.
And now Ruud van Nistelrooy has admitted injuring Ashley Cole. Where does that leave us?
Well, it should speed up the process, because if he hadn't admitted it, there'd have been a disciplinary hearing. You get the impression that Manchester United are certainly looking to get the whole episode over and done with as soon as possible, but unfortunately that simply isn't going to happen, and that's because of the tunnel bust-up. The FA want Manchester United to give them written evidence, so United will do that, but it could take weeks for that to be collated.
James, thank you.
Now with the weather, here's Alex Deakin.
Thank you very much, Dermot. The wind's picking up for all of us over the next few days, and for some of us, those winds could be a bit problematic, especially during the course of tomorrow. It's all brewing up out in the Atlantic. That is gradually heading our way. For the time being, however, we've got a lot of cloud across Northern Ireland, bringing some rain here tonight and across western Scotland. Elsewhere, the showers dying out. For most of us, a dry night. A bit of fog possible across parts of northeastern England. And by the end of the night, the rain will be pushing in across the southwest. A miserable morning across Devon and Cornwall. Gale force winds, quite a bit of rain spreading up into South Wales too. Elsewhere, the damp conditions across northern Scotland clearing away. For much of Scotland and eastern England, a decent day tomorrow. The cloud increasing, feeling chilly in the wind. By the end of the day, some rain heading for southeast England, the Midlands, and also up into northwest England. But it's really for Northern Ireland, Wales and southwest England where we are quite concerned. Outbreaks of rain for much of the day, but the winds problematic. 50-mile-an-hour gusts, possibly 60, maybe late in the day 70-mile-an-hour gusts. That could knock down a few trees and certainly could cause some problems on the roads and the ferries. But that's all for now.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks very much. And that's it for now. We're back at 7.
Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
Lives changed forever by the Selby crash.
I might not be tending graves, but I'm never going to be free, am I?
The man found guilty served half his prison sentence.
My guilt is only as far as the truth.
How did the disaster impact on his and his victims' lives?
He's tried to cover up a great big tragedy. He's even lying to himself.
For the first time, Gary Hart speaks.
I'm accepting responsibility for the truth, and the truth was not what was heard in the court.
One Life, Asleep at the Wheel, tonight at 10:35 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, Look East with Stuart White, Carol Bundock and Ellie Barker.
Hello and welcome from Carol and me.
Tonight we pay tribute to John Peel, a unique broadcaster whose appeal spanned the generations.
As well as that remarkable career, we remember the family man with a love of Suffolk and East Anglia.
In Close Up tonight, the young people being urged to get hooked on fishing, not crime.
And stay tuned for a very special And Finally with the wonderful improvisatory comedian Lenny Henry.
Hello. First, the sad news tonight that John Peel has died while on holiday in South America.
Leading figures from the world of broadcasting and music have been paying their tributes to a man regarded by many as a broadcasting legend. He lived in Suffolk but was in Peru for a walking holiday with his wife Sheila. They were in the city of Cusco when he had a heart attack. He was 65. As a broadcaster, there were fans who loved his taste in music and fans of Home Truths on Radio 4. But above all, the people who knew him were fans of the man himself. Our chief reporter, Kim Riley, has been looking back at his life.
Yes, this is probably the only 78 player that's been installed in a radio studio in the past 50 years, I'd have thought.
They've called him a broadcasting legend. John Peel was far too modest a man to take that title seriously. His Radio 1 evening sessions came from a specially built studio in his beloved Suffolk home. Every post bringing new demonstration tapes from bands attracted by his years of championing new talent.
They are a local band from Hitcham, just down the road. Sounds promising so far. Well, I was born 4 days before the war began. That's the Second World War. Then at the age of 7, I was packed off to boarding school in North Wales. Which was, I think, a sort of sad thing to have happened, really, because my dad had just come home from the war, and it was really the first time that I'd met him. I mean, I'd obviously seen him as a baby because there are pictures of him holding me, but I don't remember that.
After public school and national service, he began his broadcasting career on American radio stations like KOMA in Oklahoma City. In the early days of Beatlemania, his Liverpool accent was highly marketable. In 1967, he came back to Britain to join pirate station Radio London, moored off the Essex coast, alongside DJs like Keith Skews.
Somebody had to do the midnight to 2 shift, and then realising that nobody on board the ship, or indeed in the offices in London, was listening to the radio at that time of night, I just dispensed entirely with the format and started playing some of the records that I'd brought back from California, and then things like early Pink Floyd and Hendrix and stuff like that. There's an incredible string band. Called the programme The Perfumed Garden, and it became enormously popular. So it gave me a bit of a boost when Radio 1 started.
And to start the programme, this is electronic. It's also damaged.
He's been working for the station ever since, and in August became its only pensioner presenter. He won a whole new audience with the award-winning Home Truths on Radio 4.
John Peel's view of the world was John Peel's view of the world, and we shared it with him and we smiled with him, and hard to imagine broadcasting without John Peel.
You have this strange culture in Britain where DJs and weather forecasters and newsreaders are celebrities, as is demonstrated by the fact that you're filming me now, you know. But this means that there is a danger that you can move into a community where they see you as being somebody worthwhile and important, and your wife becomes John Peel's wife and your children become John Peel's children. That genuinely has not happened here, because the children and Sheila are such strong individuals in their own rights. It genuinely is the case that it's more like, who's that miserable bugger over in the corner? Oh, that's Sheila's husband, or that's William's dad, or something like that, which is terrific. I really like that. So I don't like, I'm not happy being in London. Sheila would confirm, I get very, if I have to stay in London overnight, I get very upset and very miserable and so forth. So we've never regretted for a minute coming to live out here.
I know I'm fabulously lucky. I mean, I do know that. Everything that I wanted when I was a kid. You know, a house in the country, not a big house, but a nice enough place, dogs, cats, an astounding wife, really nice children. I've had my rows with them, but they're, you know, very proud of them all. And a job on the radio playing records that I like. It's difficult to think what could be added to this to improve it.
Well, as we just heard, John Peel and his family made their home in Suffolk in the village of Great Fimbra. Let's go live now to the village and our Suffolk reporter, Kevin Burge.
Stu, you know, to say that there's a sense of shock here tonight would be a terrible understatement. This man was greatly loved and there's a huge amount of affection for him. He lived just down the road from here. This is a very close-knit community. There's just a few hundred people who live here, and there's a lot of things that people don't know about John Peel. Like when he came here, he started up the local youth club. He used to take local children on outings, and that really was the mark of the man. He was involved in just about every facet of his life. Now, today I've been talking to two people, Leslie Cass, who's the church warden, and Molly Wellham. Now, Molly had known him for about 30 years, and when she celebrated her 80th birthday recently, she put it on hold to make sure that John Peel could be there as special guest. Today, this was their reaction to today's sad news.
Terrible. I couldn't believe it when my friend rang up. Her granddaughter rang her up. She heard it on Radio 2. I couldn't believe it.
He did have an extraordinary touch with people, and I think that's one of the things I shall remember most about him, that he could communicate with people in all walks of life, all ages and all tastes and cultures. He was as much at ease with them as with his own family, almost.
Yes, he was a good fan. Yes, it was nice to be in his company.
Be sadly missed by everybody.
He will. He will. Yeah, very sad.
And of course, Kevin, you met him many times as well.
I've met him, privileged to meet him a couple of times, Stuart. The one thing that struck me about John Peel, whenever you met him, talking about local issues, he had no airs or graces, and when you were with him, he was incredibly funny, but incredibly generous man as well. It's a great privilege to meet him.
And thank you very much indeed. You know, above all, John Peel was a musician's disc jockey. Support from him could kick-start many careers, people like Steve Harley in Cockney Rebel, and I'm delighted to say that Steve is with us now. What are your memories of him, Steve?
Well, when we first signed to EMI, the first Cockney Rebel in very early '73, I remember the promotion men started to do what promotion men do, you know, run about all around the London radio stations, and one of them called me at home, and I was only 22, of course, this was early '73, and said, "Peely's playing you on Friday night." And believe me, I called all the guys in the band, and it lit our worlds up. It meant an awful lot to us. And the young bands today You know, we'll only find out the legacy of Missing John as the months go by, because he was their true champion. He was the one who heard everything. He listened to everything.
Just listening to that tribute that we paid to him just now, one of the things that I remember was he made me laugh, didn't he? He was a lovely man.
Yeah, he's very droll, very droll, very amusing. He interviewed me lots of times backstage at Reading Festival, backstage at Glastonbury a few years ago. A very, very amusing man. But I have to say, Stuart, that music was really what really mattered most to him after his family, I think, like so many of us. And wow. He would listen to things and he would respect anyone who tried their best. There were no airs or graces, like Kevin just said, you know, a true champion of music.
Steve, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
You may like to know there's a BBC online book of condolence for John Peel. It's at bbc.co.uk/Suffolk. And at 7 o'clock this evening, BBC local radio stations in the eastern counties are broadcasting their own tribute programme.
And on Monday, there'll be an Inside Out special tribute to John and his life in Suffolk. It's on BBC One at 7:30.
Still to come tonight, the future of our wartime RAF stations, and look who's popped in for a chat.
Coming up later on, Lenny Henry. That's after more news from your part of the region.
Good evening. Now more news close up. An unusual method is being used to help reduce crime and antisocial behaviour in Peterborough. Young people are being encouraged to take up fishing instead of loitering around the streets and causing trouble. It's already proving successful.
It is a vision of utter calm, little to be heard but the wind in the rushes and the occasional moment as a fish takes the bait.
There's a nice carp there. Oh, lovely. And I'm glad. Yeah, look at that.
But many of these children are, by their own admittance, troublemakers. They're recognised by local police as teetering on the brink of serious antisocial behaviour problems.
Temper problems, fighting, getting kicked out of school. Just my behaviour. I've got a very bad behaviour problem.
Well, I used to get in trouble a lot, run away from home and all sorts of stuff. Get in trouble, I used to hang around with loads of boys. Hopefully my life will change, because I don't want to get in trouble a lot now.
And that's exactly what this scheme held at Decoy Lakes in Whittlesey aims to do, encourage young people away from crime. With a professional angler on hand to give them tips, most are already hooked, but there are rules.
They're all interested, they're all keen to fish, they're all catching fish, and you know, they know that they need to behave themselves and keep their noses clean, if you like, for them to be able to come back again.
Do you think it's going to stop you getting in trouble in the future?
Yeah, it is. All you have to do is go out, go fishing. As easy as that. No one's there, no one's getting on your nerves and stuff. People ain't going to come at you and ask you for fights. So yeah, it's a good thing.
A teenager excluded from a Milton Keynes school is to take his case for compensation to the House of Lords. Abdul Hakim Ali had been suspected of involvement in a classroom fire at Lord Grey School. The Court of Appeal ruled that the school breached his human rights by excluding him after charges were dropped. He's claiming tens of thousands of pounds for his lost education. An investigation is continuing into the death of a man who fell from a roof. The 34-year-old was working on top of the John Smith Central Distribution Depot in Northampton yesterday. A post-mortem examination has revealed he died from head injuries. Well, as margins get tighter in farming and land is farmed more aggressively, our countryside birds are disappearing, like the lapwing or peewit, as it's often known. But one farmer in Northamptonshire is helping the lapwing by carrying out conservation work under a new government scheme.
The lapwing hasn't fared well on modern farms. It's a wading bird and it doesn't like the well-drained soil. There are only 200,000 pairs left in Britain, half the number a generation ago. On West Hill Farm, Austin Clark has left 3 acres of wheat as winter stubble to give the birds a reason to stay.
Hopefully that'll be ideal for nesting lapwing.
Yeah, looks perfect. Over the cold months,
The field has got lots of food in there. There'll be seeds for lots of birds. There'll be earthworms and different insects for the lapwings to feed on to get them through the cold months. Then Austin is actually going to just turn the soil over, a little bit like ploughing, but just to actually turn over the bare soil. The lapwings will find that attractive because they like big bare fields to nest in.
And Austin's neighbouring field is perfect for hungry chicks. Under a 10-year agreement, he's planted a grass margin teeming with insects and wheat, thistle and kale to provide seed. The government grants just about cover costs, but farmers aren't in it for the money.
Every farmer just wants to look after the environment. I mean, everywhere that you look, everywhere that you go, every field is treated really well. So I mean, everyone wants to make the countryside look as best that they can.
16,000 farmers feel the same way. The government gives them £145 million a year.
Yeah, I think it's good value for money for everybody. You know, they could come by this farm and they can see the changes that are being brought about.
And in the skies over this new landscape, we should start to see more lapwings. Jane Death, BBC Look East, Northamptonshire.
A Northampton teenager has been flown home from Mallorca after spending 2 weeks in a drug-induced coma. Russell Errington suffered injuries after falling from a balcony while on holiday. He arrived back in the country last night. He's currently at Northampton General Hospital in the intensive trauma unit. Well, cast your mind back 6 months if you can, and do you remember the BBC's community chess competition? Well, Radio Cambridgeshire offered local groups the chance to win £10,000 in a pop idol style competition. Well, now the lucky winners have started to put that money to good use.
The grand unveiling of £10,000 worth of high-tech computer equipment, and the computers are now in active service helping these cadets develop vital IT skills.
They'll be able to now do presentations for themselves now, take pictures of our activities and publish those on hopefully a website that we hope to create in the near future.
The Air Cadets had intended to be webbed up already, but a burglary at their HQ last year put their online ambitions on hold, so the community chess win form came just at the right time.
I was ecstatic. It was just so amazing. I couldn't actually believe that we won it.
It's more of a fun way to actually revise and research on aeroplanes and how the ATC works.
It helps us with computer skills and certain things around Air Cadets.
We use it for flight simulators, so it helps us to fly.
The new IT suite is already making a real difference, and armed with this technical wizardry, the sky really is the limit for the March Air Cadets. Stuart Radcliffe, BBC Look East in March.
The Bedford runner Paula Radcliffe has announced she is to compete in the New York Marathon next month. It'll be her first competitive appearance since dropping out of both the marathon and the 10,000 metres at the Athens Olympics. 3 Northampton Saints players had an appointment with the Queen at Buckingham Palace today. Ben Cohen, Steve Thompson and Paul Grayson joined the rest of their England World Cup winning teammates. They were collecting MBEs in recognition of their achievement last November. In football, Ipswich Town Football Club has announced operational profits of £1.75 million. The club's reduced losses from more than £7 million to under £500,000 in the year to the end of June. A payment from the Premiership issuing shares and a reduction in the player wage bill have all helped.
Sometimes people make a lot of the fact that we've got a small squad and we can't afford injuries or, God forbid, any suspensions, but by the same token there are pluses. The team spirit, the dressing room morale is very high, they all know they've got a chance and we're doing really well.
Well, don't forget, tonight in football, Posh are playing at Wrexham. Full match commentary will be available on Radio Cambridgeshire. Well, that's it from me now. It's time to hand you back to Stuart and Carol for the rest of the day's news. Bye for now.
You're watching Look East from the BBC. Still to come, Lenny Henry coming soon to a theatre near you.
And to a studio near us. The Ministry of Defence has decided to sell off more of its surplus land in the region. The latest property to come on the market is in Norfolk in the village of West Raynham, which used to be used by the RAF.
The RAF actually moved out of the base 10 years ago, and the site, which includes 200 houses, has fallen into disrepair. But the delay in handing over the site for development has annoyed local people.
Almost 700 acres, 170 houses, 3 barrack blocks.
For more than 50 years, this was RAF West Raynham. 10 years after the service families moved out, talks are underway between the MOD and the local council to bring the old station back to life, including the housing. The North Norfolk MP, Norman Lamb, has campaigned for the base to be sold since he was elected.
It's been a national scandal. To leave 172 homes decaying for 10 years is an outrage. But the challenge now we've got this decision at long last, is to do everything possible to get them back into use.
In 1994, a Blenheim bomber flew over to mark the closure of the base. Since then, it's only been used by the police for firearms and riot training. The MOD denies that it's been doing nothing while the houses here were left to rot. It says all 172 properties have been weatherproofed in case they were needed again, while the base was held in what the MOD calls strategic reserve. In the Second World War, when the Blenheims were flying, there were 150 air bases across the region. Now there are just 9 active air bases and more closures are inevitable. RAF Coltishall in Norfolk is the next to shut in 2006. But the MOD remains the region's biggest landowner with 100,000 acres. It said today there's no way the West Raynham houses will go straight on the market. They'll have to be sold to a developer, then renovated. But there's little doubt they'll be snapped up at the first opportunity. Ian Barmer, BBC Look East, Norfolk.
Now, he was first seen on New Faces, became a star on Tiswas, and you may remember him best as Delbert Wilkins or Theophilus P. Wildebeest.
Lenny Henry is on a one-man tour and came in to see us a few minutes ago. And it's obvious he still loves making people laugh.
I love performing. It's part of my life. I've been doing it since I was 16 and I'm 46 now. So it's a really big part of my life. And when you walk on stage in front of an audience, it's like plugging into the national grid. I love it, and I love the excitement and the thrill of it. I like messing around and improvising with the audience because they don't know what I'm going to say, and neither do I, and we sort of take it as read that it's going to be a hoot, you know. So I do like that. I've always liked performing live. Even when I started and I wasn't very good, if something went wrong, I instinctively knew what to say and how to get out of it. And people, and the audiences, they go, well, it's not very funny, but when they fell over or when he knocked that bloke over, it was really funny because he was really quick-witted, you know, so I like all that.
You were talking about characters. Have you got a favourite character? I know you've got some new ones in the show, but...
I've got lots of favourite characters, because in 30 years, you get some. I used to like Delbert, you know what I mean? I used to like Theophilus P. Wildebeest. Hey, I believe in the women's movement. I hate it when they just lie there. I used to like that guy, but I had to stop doing him because people kept doing it behind me in the street, and it would frighten me. You know, you'd be putting your money into, putting your card in the cash machine. Usually, what is that? So I stopped doing him. And I really liked Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson, he was a fine figure of a woman. Mrs. Johnson, I liked him. All those years ago, 20 years ago, I used to have this shop. There were prostitutes down there, drug dealers over there. It's all changed now. Happy days.
You know, I tell you what, when you started, though, there were impressions. Trevor McDonald, I wrote...
Reports coming in. Yes. I used to like Trevor McDonald, but I was an impressionist.
I was actually in a studio watching you talking to Trevor McDonald, and Trevor McDonald went off there, and after you'd finished, he said, he used to be quite good, didn't he?
Cheeky swine. The same can be said of him. I liked him when his hair was black. Trevor McDonald was one of the first people I did that people took notice of me. You know, they really kind of, oh yeah, he's the guy who does Trevor McDonald. And when he came on Tiswas, I was on Tiswas with him, and they bought him as a surprise. And they flashed up the real Trevor McDonald on the screen, which made me laugh a lot. But impressions were my life. You know, I used to watch Mikey Howard, and then I'd sit with a tape recorder and listen to all the different voices, and I'd try and do them properly. But after a while, you want to do your own thing. You know, you want to do your own characters. Yeah. And so the natural evolution for me was to create my own characters and do my own thing on stage, which is what So Much Things to Say is.
I wish we could have got a couple of words out of you today, but we've run out of time. Lenny, and you're in Norwich tonight and tomorrow, and then you're all over the region.
Yes,
still over the
Theatre Royal, Norwich tonight and tomorrow. Come and see it. It's a good show, and I'm in Kings Lynn and Ipswich. So I'm looking forward to going there. Please come and see the show. It rocks.
Great. Nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
He was quiet, wasn't he?
Very quiet.
Let's have the weather, Jim.
Thanks very much. Well, we're going to be looking out to the west because there are signs of a deepening low there now, and that's going to be heading towards us. But I think with a bit of luck, we should be able to hold it well away from our region, but it is going to come close. And in fact, we've still got the forerunning band of showers, the thicker cloud that moved across the eastern counties during this afternoon. A lot of that cloud is going to clear, and you'll have a fairly well-broken cloud overnight, so it means a cold night. The isobars here still widely spaced, but down here, where the low is, they're very close together, and that's what's going to happen to the west of Britain during tomorrow as that low gets closer. It won't bring too much damaging wind strength to our part of the country, but it is going to freshen things up a bit. After a quiet night tonight with very light winds overnight and clear skies, I've given you the hint, it's going to be quite a cold night. 5 or 6 Celsius for the minimum temperature overnight, a little bit higher around the coast. But for most places staying fine and dry, a little bit more cloud turning up in the south and west by the end of the night though. As for tomorrow morning, quite a bright but chilly start to the day. I think with the wind starting to freshen up a little bit, we'll notice it feels quite cold tomorrow with a southeasterly breeze becoming quite fresh or even strong at times by the afternoon. But it should stay dry for most of us until very late in the day when we'll see some rain getting into Northamptonshire, Buckinghamshire, parts of Bedfordshire and Hertfordshire about this time tomorrow. But everywhere else, I think, should stay mainly dry. The same is true for the eastern half of the region. Probably just a little bit of cloud at times along the Suffolk and Essex coast. But I think for most of us, staying fine and dry, 12 or 13 degrees Celsius for the minimum temperature. Now then, we've got quite an exciting outlook coming up because that low is going to stay close to southwest Britain during the second half of the week. It looks as though for most of us tomorrow though it should stay dry, but Thursday and Friday will both be very unsettled, showery days. Some of the showers are going to be quite heavy, could even be a rumble of thunder, and quite windy but not desperately windy, not for our side of the country. On Saturday starting to improve, just the odd shower left behind. Sunday looks like it could be a nice day again with light winds and sunny weather returning.
Jim, thank you very much indeed. We've been remembering John Peel tonight. We've just heard from Delia Smith, who was a friend of his. She said John was utterly devoted to Sheila and his family, were deeply shocked and will miss him greatly. We're ending tonight with some more pictures and the music always linked to his beloved Liverpool FC.
Hello, welcome back. One of Britain's most celebrated broadcasters, John Peel, has died suddenly while on holiday with his wife in Peru. He was 65 and suffered a heart attack. As a presenter on BBC's Radio 1 and 4, he had a dedicated following of generations of listeners. The controller of Radio 1 described him as a broadcasting legend. The Israeli parliament will this evening vote on a plan to withdraw all Jewish settlers from the Gaza Strip. Many of them demonstrated against the controversial measure today. Mr. Sharon says his plan is the best chance to end the violence. If approved, it'll be the first time Israel has pulled down Jewish settlements. In the last hour, the House of Lords has voted for hunting with hounds to be licensed. Peers backed the compromise in the hope of avoiding an outright ban in England and Wales. But a clash with MPs is likely. A majority in the Commons believe a system of registers hunts does not go far enough. For the first time, research suggests that smoking can cause asthma rather than just make the condition worse. Scientists in Finland found that the effects were much greater in women than in men. That's it for now. There's going to be a roundup of all the day's news from around the world on BBC 4 at 8 o'clock. Hugh is here at 10. Dermot and I are back tomorrow at 6. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
This is Bob's office. It wasn't always a concrete jungle. In fact, it wasn't always a jungle. He's discovering what it was like 300 million years ago, before 9 to 5 and Cafe Latte. As part of British Isles and Natural History, we'll show you how to uncover the past beneath your very feet. Click on bbc.co.uk/where I live. The British Isles. Go on, get out there.
Hello there. Prepare yourselves for some windy weather over the next few days. I don't think this will be a widespread scene across the United Kingdom, but for some of us, I think the winds could cause some problems over the next 24 to 48 hours. By some of us, I'm really talking about southwest England, Wales and the east coast of Northern Ireland. Gales here tomorrow, and by the end of tomorrow, possibly gusts of 60, maybe even 70 miles an hour. Now, those sort of winds could knock down a few trees and certainly could bring some problems to transport. I think the least we can expect is some ferries to be cancelled across the Irish Sea later tomorrow. Now, it'll also bring some heavy rain, those strong winds, and the wet weather setting in during tomorrow night with heavy showers following on Thursday. That could then cause some flooding problems, as I say, most likely during Thursday. Now, all the stormy weather brewing up out in the Atlantic, heading our way. At the moment, it's pretty damp across Northern Ireland. That wet weather across Scotland by morning. Elsewhere, many of us starting off dry. There'll be some fog forming. That will slowly clear across northeastern England during the morning. The miserable weather, though, setting in across southwest England, quickly, I think, spreading up during the day across Wales into Northern Ireland by the end of the day. Also, by the end of the day, some of that rain threatening the Midlands and eventually getting closer to southeast England. But I think much of eastern England probably staying dry. The cloud will increase and the winds will make it feel cold here at 11 or 12 Celsius, but feeling pretty miserable with the gales and the rain further west as well. Still the threat of gales on Thursday, a blustery day with frequent showers, some sunny spells in between, sunny spells and more showers again on Friday. That's all from me for now.
Psst. Want to buy a 400 quid watch for 40 quid? Clock watchdog at 7.
All right, mate, you're on. Who's next?
That one. Little Britain, a nation of one voice. Think of ladies' things! A nation with one clear message.
What's that for, you two virgin?
Ready to shout it from the rooftops.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
I believe in a Little Britain, a united nation of comedy.
The brand new series tonight at 9 on BBC Three.
What a kerfuffle. Ask not what 08 700 101010 can do for you. Just call it to get Little Britain first.
Ever wondered what we did before garden centres?
When did the things that we now take for granted first arrive? And why did we love them?
Jane Owen and Dermot Gavin create 6 new takes on gardens from the past to help the Royal Horticultural Society celebrate 200 years. Gardens Through Time, next Tuesday at 8 on BBC Two.